The CEO smirked when I warned him the acquisition contract had a loophole. "You're just a secretary, not a lawyer," he mocked. I simply nodded, then used that exact loophole to quietly buy the rights myself for just $1. When they moved to finalize the $90 million deal, their faces drained as they realized that deal now belonged to me. I can still see it, sharp as a photograph burned into my skull. The long mahogany conference table gleaming under the fluorescent lights, the air thick with the scent of polished wood, overpriced cologne, and the kind of power that chokes you if you're not careful. I stood at the table's end, my hands steady as I slipped fresh acquisition documents into leather binders, each page crisp, each word a landmine. 8 years at Carreal Holdings, and I'd become a ghost in these rooms, seen but not noticed, useful but never valued. Nathan Carreal, our CEO, sprawled in his chair like a king on a throne, his smug grin slicing through the room. "Mandy," he said, my name dripping with condescension, "you're a secretary, not a lawyer. Maybe stick to stapling things, huh?" The executives around him chuckled, their laughter like needles under my skin. Heat crawled up my neck, but I swallowed it, nodded, and set the binder in front of him. I'd learned long ago to keep my mouth shut, but inside I was cataloging every detail, every clause, every date, every buried loophole on page 47 of a 500-page contract. To Nathan, I was furniture. Silent. Invisible. The meeting buzzed with the thrill of the company's biggest acquisition yet, a $90 million European logistics firm. The room vibrated with their excitement, their egos practically sparking. The deal was a week from closing, and Nathan would soak up every ounce of glory. But as I handed him the contract draft for final review, a knot tightened in my chest, cold and heavy. I tapped a section near the back. "There's something here legal might want to double-check," I said, my voice low, measured. Nathan barely glanced at it. "Leave it," he snapped. I held his gaze, my pulse steady despite the dismissal. "It's a loophole," I said. "Page 312, subsection D. It allows third-party purchase rights under dormant license clauses." His scoff echoed, loud enough to silence the room. "Mandy, please. I have 3 Ivy League lawyers on this. If they're not worried, I'm not worried, and I don't pay you to think." The silence that followed was suffocating. Some smirked. Others looked away. I nodded. "Understood, sir." But something broke in me that day. For 8 years, I'd swallowed their condescension, their subtle digs, the glass ceiling pressing down so hard it left bruises. I told myself it was the cost of staying in the game, of surviving in a world that didn't see me. But this wasn't just arrogance. It was negligence, reckless and dangerous, and I was done letting it slide. That night, I stayed late, the office dark except for the glow of my desk lamp. The cleaning crew shuffled past, their vacuums humming, not sparing me a glance. Mandy, the secretary, always there, always invisible. But I wasn't taking notes. I was dissecting that contract, every clause, every footnote, every cross-reference. My eyes burned as the hours ticked past midnight, but what I found froze me. The dormant license clause was real, a legal ticking bomb. It allowed a third party to claim licensing rights for a nominal fee, $1, if they filed before the acquisition closed. A clause meant for emergencies, never intended to be used, but it was still there, overlooked by Nathan's Ivy League lawyers. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with something sharper, something alive. For the first time, I saw it clearly. Power didn't sit at the head of the table. It lived in the fine print, in the details no one bothered to read. And I was going to use it. I wasn't reckless, though. I knew this could ruin me, my job, my career, maybe more. But I also knew the clock was ticking, and Nathan was clueless. By the time they tried to close their $90 million deal, I'd be holding the key. The next morning, the office hummed with its usual rhythm, coffee brewing, keyboards clacking, small talk like static. I sat at my desk outside the executive suite, my face a mask of calm. Under my blazer in my bag was a signed check for $1 and a printed claim form. I'd called an old college friend in corporate compliance the night before. She confirmed it. The clause was binding, a relic from 20 years ago carried over through every ownership change. If someone filed a claim and paid the fee before the merger finalized, they'd own the licensing rights to the company's core logistics software. Without that license, the acquisition would collapse. I wasn't a lawyer, but I didn't need to be. I just needed to play by the rules exactly as they were written. At 12:47 p.m., during lunch, I slipped out to a notary office 2 blocks away. The air outside was crisp, the city pulsing around me, indifferent. I signed the form, paid the filing fee, and handed over the $1 in cash. The notary, a woman in her 60s with eyes like a hawk, glanced at the amount and smirked. "Hope this works out for you," she said. I smiled back, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "Me too." Back at the office, nothing seemed different. Nathan's assistant gossiped with marketing. The CFO laughed about golf on a call. Nathan barked about synergy behind his glass wall. I sat at my desk, typed a summary of my filing, and emailed it to myself for safekeeping. Then I waited. For 2 days, nothing happened. Doubt crept in, cold and insidious. Had I misread something? Risked everything on a technicality? But on the third morning, the air shifted. At 9:15 a.m., a lawyer from the acquisition firm stormed into Nathan's office. Their voices were low, urgent. Nathan's rose once, a sharp bark, then fell silent. By noon, the legal team was huddled in the boardroom. At 1:30 p.m., Nathan called an urgent leadership meeting. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. Whispers floated through the hallways. Loophole claim, frozen license, the deal can't close. I kept my head down, my fingers typing nonsense to look busy. Nathan passed my desk that afternoon, his face tight, no smirk in sight. I went home that night, my heart racing, not with fear but with a strange calm. It was working. The next morning my phone buzzed before I reached the office. Nathan Carryle, the caller ID read. I stared at it, my thumb hovering, then answered. "Mandy," he said, his voice sharp but laced with forced politeness. "I need you in my office. Now." I smiled to myself. "Of course, sir." Walking through the office, I felt every eye on me, but this time I didn't shrink. Nathan's office was cold, not from the air, but from the look on his face. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring at the skyline like a man plotting revenge. "Have a seat," he said, his voice deceptively calm. I sat. He didn't. "I've been told a dormant license claim was filed against the Hanover acquisition," he began. I said nothing, my face neutral. His jaw tightened. Imagine my surprise when I learned it was filed by my secretary. I met his gaze. I followed the process outlined in the contract. "It's a legal claim." He laughed, a brittle sound. "Legal or not, you had no right. You blindsided this company and jeopardized a $90 million deal." I folded my hands. "Actually, I exercised a public clause your legal team overlooked. As of now, I hold the licensing rights Hanover needs to operate." His eyes darkened. "What are you playing at?" I blinked slowly. "Nothing, sir. I'm ensuring my rights as per the agreement." Silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then he sat, folding his hands like a poker player. "You want money?" I tilted my head. "Excuse me?" His smile was sharp. "Name your price." "I'll buy you out. Clean, quiet." I held his gaze. "I didn't file for money." His smile faltered. "Then what?" I leaned forward. "I filed because you dismissed me like I didn't exist. You ignored my warning, just like you've ignored everyone who isn't at this table with a title you respect. I'm not here to negotiate, Nathan. This isn't your game to win anymore." For the first time, his confidence cracked. "This won't end well for you," he said. I nodded. "Or for you." We stared at each other, the air electric. "You'll regret this," he said. I smiled politely. "I'll take my chances." At the door, he stopped me. "You think you're smarter than me?" I turned, meeting his eyes. "No, Nathan. I just read the fine print." Then I left. The office was a storm of whispers after that. By 5:03 p.m., HR emailed me. Formal inquiry into conduct. I almost laughed. It was Nathan's playbook. Discredit, isolate, eliminate. But I'd hired an attorney 2 days earlier. I forwarded the email to her, my pulse steady. The next morning, my computer was locked, a red screen blinking. Access restricted. At 8:13 a.m., HR called me in. The head of HR and a corporate counsel I didn't know sat across from me. "We've suspended your system access pending investigation," the HR director said. I nodded. "Concerns about a lawful claim I filed personally, outside company resources?" Her face flickered with discomfort. "We're following protocol." I slid a letter from my attorney across the table stating that any retaliation would trigger a legal response. The counsel's lips thinned. "Is that a threat, Miss Harris?" I met his gaze. "It's a fact." Silence. Then HR nodded stiffly. "We'll review this. I left with no system access but a paper trail. By noon, the whispers grew louder. HR's on her now. She's finished. I kept my face neutral, but I wasn't naive. Nathan was trying to bury me before the board or shareholders caught wind. At 2 p.m., I met my attorney in a cafe. He slid a folder over. We're filing a preemptive injunction. They move against you. They'll explain it in court. Public record. I nodded. Nathan won't risk that. He smiled. Exactly. The next day, the office felt different. The tension wasn't aimed at me anymore. It was Nathan. Rumors spread. Compliance breach, emergency board review. The CFO avoided my eyes. Then, late that afternoon, the chairman of the board, Richard Clark, called. We need to talk, he said. In a glass-walled conference room, I laid it all out. The ignored warning, the loophole, Nathan's retaliation. I handed over documents, calm, factual. When I finished, Richard steepled his hands. You've put us in a difficult position. I met his eyes. No, sir. Nathan did. I followed the law. He nodded slowly. You're not wrong. He asked me not to speak to the press. I smiled. I'm not looking for headlines. I want accountability. He nodded again. We'll be in touch. By Monday, the office had changed. Nathan's door was closed, blinds drawn. Richard was on site, meetings shuffling like a deck of cards. At 2:15 p.m., I was called to the boardroom. Every board member was there, Nathan at the far end, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Richard spoke. We've reviewed Ms. Harris's documents, statements from legal, HR, and compliance. This acquisition was jeopardized by a critical oversight. He turned to me. You filed as a private individual using no company resources? Yes, sir. No proprietary information? None. The clause was public. He turned to Nathan. You were aware of this issue before the claim? Nathan's jaw clenched. Yes. Did you investigate? A pause. I dismissed it. Silence. The board dismantled Nathan's actions, his negligence, his retaliation. He tried to deflect, blaming legal, even me, but the facts were ironclad. Richard's verdict was final. Nathan Carryle is on administrative leave, effective immediately. Nathan's face flushed crimson. He looked at me, speechless. I met his gaze, unflinching. Richard pulled me aside after. You handled this with professionalism, he said. We'll need your help with Hanover's lawyers. I nodded. I'll be ready. 2 days later, Nathan was gone. A quiet memo announcing his personal departure. The office buzzed, but I stayed silent. The acquisition moved forward, transparent, with Richard as interim CEO. He asked me to join the negotiation team as an advisor, with real authority. I accepted, demanding autonomy. He agreed. We closed the deal, airtight, no mistakes. One evening, alone in the conference room, I stared at the skyline. 8 years of being invisible, dismissed. Respect wasn't earned with hard work, it was claimed. Richard joined me, offering coffee. The board wants you to stay, he said. Director of Risk and Contract Strategy, reports to us. I blinked. Why me? He smiled. You protected this company from itself, without seeking credit. I took the job, a modest office, no fanfare. Nathan? He's consulting somewhere small now. I don't care. I didn't fight to win a war, I fought to be heard, and that made all the difference.